Welcome to the podcast. My guest today is Lieutenant Ty Skaggs. He's the post commander here in Bucyrus for the Ohio State Highway Patrol.
Yep.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I
Appreciate
think-
you guys having me on again.
I think this is the first I've actually done a podcast with you.
Yeah, you.
Yeah,
With you. Usually,
You've done it with Randy, but
several
you've,
times.
you've never had to put up with me.
Right, yeah, it's first time.
So it's the first time for everything.
Yep,
So-
usually you're the one greeting me at the door. So
Yes,
this is good.
you're correct.
Yep.
So we kind of switch some things around every now and then. And
Mhm.
speaking about switching things around, whatever, I understand I take it right now, by the way, your facility out there, you guys are pretty much all moved in and
Yes.
things are going well there, or
Yes.
pretty well. I mean, you guys have little bugs.
Sure. Yeah, there's a couple little things where we're like, hey, we wanted to add a couple of dimmer switches that we didn't have before in certain areas. Just small little things that you don't realize during the design process
Sure.
of the building. You try to think of everything when you're looking at it on paper, but until you get in there and live, just like moving into a new house, you're
Yes.
like, man, we really need to have this or that. So there's just a couple minor little things that we've requested to get tacked on there. But other than that, everything is working fine. Everybody's happy with the new facility. The public that came in during our open house,
Yes.
really thought it was nice and enjoyed being able to see it and everything. So it's working out well for us.
Well, I understand the Highway Patrol had a birthday celebration.
Yes, we did. So it was really kind of nice. You talked about the new building. We got moved in there, and back on November 15th, a few weeks
Okay.
ago, we hit 90 years birthday because on
Wow.
November 15th, 1933 is when we graduated our very first academy class out of Camp Perry, up north there along Lake Erie, near Port Clinton, northwest of
Right.
there. And what was special about this year, I mean, not only that it was the 90th, but then we had a historical marker. Those historical markers
Sure,
you see in different
sure.
places all around the state on the roadside. There's one that we got erected up at Camp Perry at the yard there. They were able to use some historical photos and data from the time frame to figure
that's
out where
wonderful.
on camp that they actually had the ceremony using some photos and stuff, and put up a historical marker there denoting, hey, this is where the first class graduated. With some information out there. It was really nice to have that put up that's there for people to see, and it was it's quite a story. You look at the legislation that was passed to approve the creation of the Ohio State Highway Patrol back then, and it was quite a sought after job. That first class, 5,000 applicants
Wow.
submitted trying to get into that class. And then, of course, they went through the selection process and trimmed it down. They couldn't have a class size of 5,000. It was 125 people that entered the academy, and they graduated 60 patrolmen on 90 years ago on the 15th. So it's quite a process. When I first saw that number, wow, 5,000, that's a lot. I thought about the time frame. I mean, this was in the midst of the Great Depression, so
Yes.
a lot of people were really desperate to try to find work. So that probably is part of what contributed to that high number. So that started our tradition there, and we're still carrying on. And we just graduated another class 172, graduated. Friday, a few weeks back on the 17th, just a few days after the birthday.
Yeah.
And so a new whole round of patrolmen and patrolwomen that got out, troopers that are headed out on the road and starting their training process. So. It was really fun. We've been doing a lot of things this year with celebrating that 90th birthday that we knew was coming up.
Well, it's very historic, and then now this time of year, I imagine we're thinking about holidays, and there's
Yes.
I guess you could say the things that can happen over the holidays that we need to be kind of mindful of as drivers.
Certainly.
And so maybe we need to kind of brush people up on this a little bit.
Yeah, the travel season, there's always a lot of traveling that happens. We have the summer holidays that we've already gotten through,
Yes.
which is your Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. But then now we're moving into, that time of year where you have the holidays. There's Thanksgiving and New Year's and Christmas right in there, and a lot of people travel on all those holidays. So this is a good time to remind people to make sure that they do what they have to do to travel safely. One thing I want to talk about is safety belts. We always have a push starting the 1st of November every year. There's federally funded overtime that gets put out across the state to all agencies to go out and focus on safety belt enforcement, to try to get people to buckle up and get in that mindset leading into the holidays. So that's been going on for since the 1st of November, as I said. And sometimes people, I think, take for granted that, most people wear their safety belt. It's really, not that big of a deal. But if you look at the statistics, just some numbers here to throw out. Since 2018, we've had 2,847 people that were killed on Ohio's roadways that were not wearing a safety belt. So that's a lot of people
Yes,
whose
it
lives
is.
could have potentially been saved, had they buckled up. As far as our enforcement efforts, since 2018, there's been nearly 500,000 safety belt and child safety restraint citations issued by the Ohio State Highway Patrol.
Wow, I did not know it was that high.
And that's just the ones that, we've stopped inside of. There's a lot of others that, we don't catch or we don't see. So it's still a problem out there that, people need to make sure that they're buckling up. And if you're the type of person that you do buckle up, well, pay attention to your family and friends and try to convince them of the importance of putting that safety belt on, so that then me or one of my comrades doesn't have to come and knock on your door and inform you that your loved one's not coming home. Do that for your family's sake, to look out for your family and friends and try to get them to buckle up.
It's not a time to be lackadaisical.
Definitely not. And I'll go ahead and call out, I'm a guy, but statistics show that guys are much worse at safety belt usage than the ladies. Women, about 90% usage rate, where guys are only at about 82%. So challenge out there to all the guys that are listening, don't be macho, come on, put your safety belt on, right? Save your life. So.
Well, now, speaking of safety belts, and again, we're coming up on holidays, so I would imagine, I would take it impaired driving is another issue we need to probably get into.
Absolutely. There's a lot of, celebrations that go on, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. As I said before, we're in the midst of that holiday season, and it's very important to remember the things that you've heard before, to make sure that you designate a driver, or get a ride from someone, whether it be an Uber or something like that, or just be wherever you're going to be for the night. So you're not going to be traveling anymore if you're going to, partake of any celebratory drinks, right? And again, same thing as I said for the safety belts. Even if you're the person, I don't do that. I don't drink and drive, so I don't need to worry about that message. No, think about your family and friends and anybody that you know of that might not always make the best decisions, and talk to them. Take this opportunity to talk to them before those times come around, and try to convince them to take those steps to keep themselves and everybody else on the roadway safe.
Yeah, because there's just a lot to be thought about, but you got to act on what these
That's
things.
Correct.
Now, the other thing I would segue into would be road conditions, because now we're going to probably be transitioning. Who knows with the way the winters go, to ice or snow or whatever.
That's correct.
I take it the first rule of thumb is slow down?
Yeah, definitely slow down. Even if it's not freezing precipitation, even just wet roadways, the rain can, cause some problems. So slow down there, but even more so if it's freezing and you're getting snow, sleet, ice, or any of those type things, to make sure that you slow down. Allow extra safe stopping distance. Normally on dry roads, you might follow at a certain safe distance behind another vehicle, but in unfavorable road conditions, you have to increase that distance, because your stopping distance is going to take longer, because you're going to be doing some sliding. Even with analog brakes and everything, on ice, it's not a perfect, it helps, but it's not a perfect solution.
Yeah, so. It always amazes me, because I will talk to people occasionally and they'll say, well, I got a four-wheel drive vehicle. Well, I got some news for you. There's no, that's just, I guess the point I'm trying to make by saying that is sometimes we assume we have an extra layer of protection because we have this, or I can do this, and I've got this, and I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
But the best policy is slow down.
Yeah, and like you said, four-wheel drive does not make you immune from losing control on snow and ice. Where it is really helpful. I mean, four-wheel drive is great at your lower speeds. Like, some cars you might come to a stop and it snows and you try to go and you're just spinning tires. Well, the four-wheel drive will help you get going.
Sure. So
in your slower conditions, four-wheel drive can go a lot of places that a non-four-wheel drive vehicle cannot go. But once you get up to a certain speed, that four-wheel drive is not going to do for you what some people think it's going to do. You're not immune from losing control. Yeah. So you still got to keep it at a slow speed.
Well, don't over assume that because it's four-wheel drive, it's going to bail you out.
Exactly. Yeah. And then also just talking about vehicles in general, not talking about drivetrains, but other equipment on the vehicles. This is the time of year to make sure you inspect your windshield wipers. All right, make sure that they're good and actually be able to clear off your windshield when you use them. Washer fluid. You have a good, stash of that in there. Don't let that reservoir go dry. Then a semi goes by and throws up a whole bunch of muddy water on there, and then you just smear it, and now you can't see where you're going. Make sure your tires have good tread. Don't skimp on that, because you could lose control. Take two vehicles, everything else being equal, and going the same speed. One could maintain traction and the other one not, just because it doesn't have the right tread on the tires. So if you're in need of those tires, get them replaced. if they don't have good enough tread on there. Make sure you have some emergency supplies in your vehicle just in case you get stranded somewhere. You know, maybe some non-perishable foods, some water, some extra blankets, things like that. You know, road flares or flashlights. It's something that you can put out, a flashing light, you know, to signal to let somebody see you if you wind up off the road a distance, to allow someone to locate you. Just different steps you can take to try to make sure you're safe out there. When you're going to be traveling and it's not the greatest out, try to keep your fuel tank up.
Yes.
You know, don't go out when it's really snowy out and you know you got to go 20 miles, and I may or may not get there, and you only got a quarter tank of gas, because then if you get stranded, you're going to have heat for a lot less time. So keep your fuel tank up where it needs to be, and just take those steps to try to keep yourself as safe as possible.
Be aware.
Yeah, definitely aware. Watch the weather. Be weather aware. So for folks traveling to work in the mornings, always make sure you kind of check on that weather the day before, like before you go to bed. Okay, is it going to be slick out there tomorrow? Is there some snow showers? Maybe the roads are clear and dry now as I'm going to bed, but is there another inch of snow that's going to come tonight and booger things up in the morning? Might I need to get up an extra 15, 20 minutes earlier to allow myself to be able to travel at a safe speed to get to where I'm going?
Yeah, you want to compensate to the
Yep.
road condition by allowing enough time.
Right.
And that's where most people get into trouble, because they get rushed.
Mm-hmm.
Because now they've got other things. Maybe there's vehicles outside, and then they got to clean the
Right.
windshield, so now they're even further behind.
Exactly.
And in those road conditions,
Mm-hmm.
not good to be in a hurry.
Right, definitely not.
All right, Lieutenant, anything else we'd like to cover today on this podcast?
No, just wishes out there for everybody to have a safe and happy holiday season. Get to where you're going safely, enjoy time with your family.
All right, well, thank you again,
Yep,
Lieutenant Ty Skaggs with the Ohio State Highway Patrol.